everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today's episode, we are talking about how to use a checklist. More specifically, I want to tell you to use a checklist as opposed to how to use a checklist, because a checklist is pretty much self-explanatory. You do the thing, you check it off there. That is how you do a checklist. But why? Why should you use a checklist? Well, if you listen to my solo episodes, as I call them, where it's just me and I don't have a guest, at the end of every single episode, I remind you all, organization is the enemy of sloth, right? Like, you remember that, right? Okay. So in this particular circumstance, I'm talking about checklists, and I bring it up because I was using a checklist. Yeah, that's right. I actually do what I preach over here. And so I have a new business venture that I'm working with. And so I'm a consultant there, and I'm just trying to figure out what all they need to do. And instead of just like sitting around going, man, what should they do next? And I think about it. I go and I pull from my records the various checklists I've developed over the years, and things that have popped up. And every time something new pops up, I'm like, man, I never saw that one coming. It goes on the checklist to make sure I watch out for it. I keep track of it, or I conquer it later. All right. And so I pull out these checklists, and I'm like, okay, so this business is going to need a and I just go right down the list. And the business partner who I'm showing this all to is like, that's a lot of stuff we have to do. Absolutely. And that is what you need for a successful business. So you out there in Gamerpreneur land listening to this, whether you're a streamer or a game developer, or you own your own business, or whoever you are, you're a gamer, you're my people, right? If you want to be more organized, one of the best things you can do is simply create a checklist for your life. You could be a daily checklist, right? Pick 5 things that you want to conquer every single day, okay? And if you do it every single day with the intention of making sure you get it done and it becomes a part of yourself, it becomes a habit, and then you can change the checklist and it becomes a new checklist next month. And that's something I did a couple of years ago. I would create a checklist, rock out those 5 things until they became habit. And then I would choose a new checklist. And like, if you want to get up early every single morning, that's a good way. Just number 1, get up at 5:30 in the morning. That's fun, I tell you. Yee. All right. So how do you use a checklist, right? Not how to, like, and you need to use a checklist. Where do you find a checklist? Like, you're sitting out there like, Brad, this sounds cool and all, but I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Well, you've got don't you people have phones? Right? Like, you have a phone and you have the Google on your phone, and you can type into the Google whatever it is you want to type it in, and you ask it questions and it gives you results. And there's this thing on the Google called, anything you want. Really, that's the thing on the Google. It's anything you want. And so if you're looking for a checklist on how to lose weight, if you're looking for a checklist on how to grow my business, a checklist on how to market my business, a checklist on how to hire people for my business. So you're looking for checklists, you just got to Google it. Yeah, Bing might work. I'm not a huge fan of Bing. Yahoo's right out. Okay. But Google. So you go, you find a checklist. Now, years and years and years ago, when I was first switching over to from business law to business consulting, I didn't have like a process that I worked with my clients. I just kind of knew the things that they had to watch out for. And I had a checklist on those things. Okay. So there was a checklist of the things they had to watch out for, but it wasn't things that they should do. And that was the part, like, people were wondering what should I do, Brad? And I'm like, I'm a consultant. No, I need to tell them. I don't know. So I went and I Googled checklists, and I found a bunch of people who had made checklists for different businesses and how to run businesses. And I took a bunch of them and I compiled them all into like one mega checklist. And then I went to my first client after that. I'm like, this is my checklist. And they're like, wow, you're super prepared. And I'm like, yes, I am. And I've been using it ever since. I've tweaked it here and there, like I said, but you guys can do this stuff too. Like, if you wanted to become a business consultant, you don't got to go get a credential. Like, I have a Juris Doctor degree, right? It means I have a law degree. And yeah, it means I was drilled to think a certain way and act a certain way, but it also made me kind of uber cautious. And there's people who are like more daring and have more bravado and are just better salespeople than I am, who are able to go out there. And so long as they have a few things that they're able to help their client with, it works. Now, a lot of people are like, okay, Brad, like, you just told me I could be a business consultant and I don't have any experience being business. Like, aren't I an imposter? imposter syndrome. We've talked about that before here. I see it all the time in the gaming space. Like, I don't feel like I deserve the success that I have. There is somebody out there right now. Somebody, I don't know who it is. All right. But they're out there and they're selling people on their services. No idea what they're doing. But they're going to either figure out how to do it, or they're going to hire someone who's going to charge less than they charged in order to do it and take the arbitrage. And that's how they make their money, right? Like when I was doing some business with pest control years ago. And the guys who were running sales teams for these pest controls companies, so they would go and they would hire college kids. They would take them off to like Chicago or Miami or Las Vegas. They would take them somewhere where they have pest issues during certain months, and they would go and they would just send the kids down the streets to knock on doors, like, "Hey, would you want some pest control? Hey, would you like some pest control?" And they would teach them the script. These kids knew nothing about how the chemicals worked or like what happened, whether it was actually child friendly. They were told it was, and they were like, yeah, it's child friendly. They didn't actually know any of that stuff. They had no idea how it creates a 3-month barrier or any of that stuff. You don't need to know that stuff. You just need to sell it in order to be able to make the money and then make sure you fulfill. Okay. It's fraud if you don't fulfill. Speak to an attorney though, right? I can't give you legal advice, but in my opinion, my personal lay opinion, it is fraud if you don't fulfill on people, and it's not right. And you need to make sure you're providing the service that you tell people you're going to provide. Okay. If you oversell and under deliver, you're the criminal. You want to sell as much as you're giving, or you want to sell and then give more. Those are the only two options, right? And even the middle one, you sell and then give the same amount as what you sold, like you're not going to get repeat business. You got to find ways to give more. And so be careful when you're going out there telling people that you can do something if you don't know how. Caveat real quick. This whole topic is about using a checklist, right? You can go to the Google and you can search for a checklist or a guide or whatever on how to do the thing that you would like to sell on how to do. And then you would just follow the checklist. And so long as you can get a person a result following somebody else's method, you're now doing the thing and you can charge for it. Mic drop. So I'm going to remind you all, organization is the enemy of sloth. I just mic dropped on my own show. Look at that. Okay. Organization is the enemy of sloth. Use a checklist. Okay. That's all I got for everybody. Don't be just a gamer. Be a gamerpreneur.